सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। As in the introduction, it was briefly touched upon that we will be starting this Shravana Sadhana series. Shravana, the main sadhana is to listen. Bhagavad Gita, which has 700 or 701 shlokas, to chant it, if you know all the shlokas, it might take say about 1.5 to 2.5 hours to chant it. But the essence of Bhagavad Gita is so deep that probably Bhagavad Gita holds the world record of the maximum number of commentaries that are available on any work so far. That is Bhagavad Gita. And if I am not wrong, in the library of Banaras Hindu University, they have maintained it as a habit to gather all the commentaries possible, from the most ancient ones to the newest ones. Entire floor is dedicated only for Bhagavad Gita. So when this Mahabharata, wherein we find Bhagavad Gita, this was being or supposed to be written by Bhagavan Vedavyas ji, the task was asked of him, can you write this Bhagavad Gita, not Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata? He said, this is a voluminous work and it has to cover several generations. Almost about 5 to 6 generations have to be covered. There is a main story and there are other side stories that come to support this Mahabharata. The speed with which my thinking will run, my hands will not do justice to note down all the points that come in my mind. I probably would require somebody to write it. So thus, officially, the first stenographer's job was announced. Just with the mammoth size of work that was explained, that people have to sit down and write, the best of the best stepped back saying it is not a task that we would want to sign up for. Then finally, it was asked of Bhagwan Ganesha, and he said, seems like a good challenge, provided Bhagwan Vedavyasa promises that he would understand every single word uttered, and with meaningfulness he gives this Bhagavad Gita, and without stopping anywhere. If he pauses, if he stops, I put my pen down and I walk away. Because Vedavyasi also should have a challenge. As if writing this mammoth-sized Mahabharata was not enough, Bhagwan Ganesha put this stipulation across. And we know of Ganesh Maharaj. It is said that when Ravana was taking Atmalinga as a blessings from Bhagwan Shiva, from Kailasa, he had to do the Sayam Sandhya. So he was around the kshetra called Gokarna. So he said, how do I leave this Atmalinga? There was a cowherd boy. So he called him and he asked him to hold it, that he will quickly finish his evening Sandhya Vandana and come back. And who was that cowherd boy? That was Bhagwan Ganesha himself in that disguise. So he said, I will count till 10. If you don't come, I will leave this right here and go away. So the plan was that Ravana should be separated from this Atmalinga, otherwise he will have too much of power concentrated with him. So as soon as Ravana left for his Sayam Sandhya, Bhagwan Ganesha 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and he kept it there, and that kshetra became Gokarna. And the local, when you go there to that temple, there is that Atmalinga temple. Right next to it, there is a Ganesha temple. So there the priest says, you will find Ganeshji in a completely different attire. You will find him in the Vatu form, a small kid wearing a dhoti. So while the arati is being done, the Purohit says, right here on the top where you see a indentation on Ganeshji's head, it was caused because angry Ravana with his Panchapatra with which he was doing Sandhya Vandana knocked on the head of Ganesha, and therefore it went inside. I am not creating it, this is what is said in the Sthala Purana. So knowing this happened in Treta Yuga, Ramayana Kala. This is Dwapara Yuga. And Vyasa Bhagavan knew Ganeshji and his stipulations. So Vyasa Bhagavan said, yes, I will write it all meaningfully, but Ganeshji has also a challenge that without understanding the depth and meaning and the purport of this Mahabharata, he should not start writing. Meaning he should understand it and then write it. So thus the equation was set and the entire Mahabharata was written. It is the greatest work, voluminous work, which has about 1,00,000 shlokas, 100,000 shlokas. This Bhagavad Gita happens in the Bhishma Parva. When you look at the very first shloka, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yutsava Mamakah Pandavas Chaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. It almost reads, it almost feels that Dhrtarashtra is inquiring, there is something that has happened. His question seems very strange. In the place called Dharmakshetra, which is Kurukshetra, Samaveta, from both sides, the Pandu's children and my children with their own armies have assembled. Samaveta Yutsavaha. Mamakaha Pandavas Chaiva. And then the last part of that first shloka, Kim Akurvata. What happened? What did they do? Luckily, Sanjaya was not a smart aleck, that he did not give out sarcasm. He tried explaining it. If I put myself in that shoes, I would have probably said, you are saying it is Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, it is the warriors that have assembled. What happened? War will happen, what else will happen? It appears a very strange question, because on the battlefield you will not be playing Kho-Kho or Gilli Danda. It will be a war. What kind of a question is that? Now, to understand this, we have to go into the history of this entire event. I usually ask this in a question answer format. If you know the answers, please do tell. On which day was Bhagavad Gita given by Bhagavan Krishna to Arjuna? You would say, what kind of question is this? It was given before the war started, right? It was given on the first day. The first question was a simple question, easy question. But when you look into the Mahabharata text, when the war begins, Yuddha Parva, when the war begins, you flip the pages, you would not find Bhagavad Gita mentioned there. You will not find Bhagavad Gita as we have assumed, that just as the war is supposed to begin, Bhagavad Gita was given, so it should reflect in that particular portion. But it doesn't reflect there. Bhishma, he was like in today's terminology, if I have to say, he was like a firewall to the entire Kaurava army. He was protecting each one of them. Nobody could get past Bhishma. How many days is the war totally? 18 days. 9 days passed by. Neither does he allow the Pandavas to penetrate in and destroy the Kaurava army, nor did he strategize in a way that he would eliminate the Pandavas. Now, eliminate Pandavas, there is nobody for who you have to fight for. So the stalemate that had happened for these many years continued on the battlefield. Neither this side would win nor that side would lose. Then on the 9th day, we hear that Bhagavan Krishna, who had vowed, who had taken a vrata, that he will not participate in this war with any astra shastra. Frustrated with Bhishma, he jumps off the chariot. While he is running, there is a broken chariot. He pulls the wheel out of that chariot, and rushes towards Bhishma with the intent of killing Bhishma. And how is this opponent Bhishma? As soon as he sees that Bhagavan Krishna is rushing towards him with the wheel, he also jumps off his chariot, rushes towards Bhagavan Krishna, only to fall on his knees, kneel down and say, Bhagavan, I must have been the most luckiest to have this kind of a blessing from you. Please bring it on. Now you will also find it difficult that when you want to scold your child for some kind of a mischief, and the child comes running and says, Ma, beat me. What do you do there? So frustrated, he throws the wheel. The point that Bhagavan Krishna was trying to make was conveyed, that was understood by Bhishma. The next day, you find that based on the idea given by Bhishma himself, Shikhandi is brought in and Bhishma refuses to shoot. But on the battlefield, Arjuna rains his arrows that it penetrates through and through the entire body of Bhishma. He is on the bed of arrows. It is this day that Dhrtarashtra is completely shattered from inside. He is devastated inside. He may be blind, but his intellect is very calculative, shrewd mind. This is, as long as Bhishma is alive, Kauravas are protected. Today Bhishma has fallen, and that too to the arrows of Arjuna. Therefore, out of that enquiry mode, he asks Sanjaya, Kim akurvata? मतलब कुछ तो हुआ है. As they say in Hindi, दाल में कुछ काला है. Why? Because this blind king had strategized something very specifically. Bhagavan Krishna had come on behalf of Pandavas as an ambassador, bringing in the note of peace, that the Pandavas are ready to settle with 5 villages. Nobody was ready for that agreement. Instead, they even tried assassination attempts on Bhagavan Krishna. There were 3 attempts made. Bhagavan Krishna was 10 steps ahead of them. He was safe. But he came back with a message saying the Kauravas did not agree for the peace treaty. It's not easy to establish that kind of peace treaty. In today's age, between Iran and Israel and America, it's not easy. Bhagavan Krishna went there, escaped the assassination attempts, came back empty-handed, saying that there seems to be no other way other than war alone being our refuge. Now, to understand this, one has to understand one more basic factor. Sometimes when we see these Pauranic movies, Mahabharata series, whatever is the director presenting there as that movie or that presentation, we all have seen it. Have you all seen the B.R. Chopra Mahabharata series? Yes? N.T. Ramarao in various forms and formats of these Mahabharata stories. Right? So because of these various kinds of presentations and representations, our basic idea of understanding Mahabharata has been diverted. And needless to say, though Mahabharata is available, Vyasakrita Mahabharata is available, I am sure to say or claim none of us sitting here have studied the entire Mahabharata. I would be shocked if somebody were to raise a hand saying, no sir, don't be so critical about us, I have studied. Is there anybody? So my claim is not. You are going to shock me. Vyasa Mahabharata you have studied. Good. At least the English, the translation. Was it Rajgopalachari? Kamala Subramaniam? Or Ganguly? Ganguly. Rajgopalachari. Rajagopalachari's is abridged. It's like you can breathe through it in a night. Kamala Subramaniam has done a very good job because Gurudev used to tell us when we would ask him how to read, we don't know Sanskritam at that age. He said, by Kamala Subramanian's Bhagavatam, Ramayanam and Mahabharata, read them, you will have a good idea. At least two of them have raised the hand. But in these abridged formats, you will miss the point because the details are filtered out. For example, on the battlefield, do you know what was Bhagavan Krishna's age? Because having seen the Mahabharata from B.R. Chopra, we would think that he was like Nitish Bharadwaj, young fellow looking. +100, 80+. In Mahabharata and Bhagavatam, for cross reference, we find that when the hunter's arrow hits Bhagavan's toe, and that is when he leaves the body finishing Krishna Leela, it is mentioned that he was 125 years old. It is also mentioned that this incident of that hunter shooting and it hitting Bhagavan's toe happened 36 years after the Mahabharata war. So how old was Bhagavan? If there was younger generation sitting, I would have said, open your mobile phones and it is 89 years. It is not around 80, around 90, it is 89 to be specific. Can you imagine? Pandavas, Bhima and Yudhishthira were older than Bhagavan. There are several instances in Mahabharata you will come across wherein Bhagavan himself, when he comes to Hastinapura, he offers his namaskarams and prostrations to Yudhishthira and Bhima because they were older than him. Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva were younger than Bhagavan. So Yudhishthira was 91, Bhima was 90, Arjuna was 1 year younger to Bhagavan. So we are talking about in the late 80s. when we cross 50, 55, we start saying, I have become old. Now imagine, on the battlefield, from the sunrise, Suryodaya to sunset, they are on the Ratha, standing through and through. I am not even going into the battle strategies and the horrors of the battle. Just standing from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 12 hours. What kind of stamina must they be having? Because they were not young. Arjuna himself was 88. Baapre. The reason I mention this age is, it was not a reaction of the Pandavas to take up to arms against Kauravas out of 1 or 2 months or 1 or 2 years of oppressed living. It was a solid 8+ decades of oppressed environment that they had to put up with. It is not like somebody disrespected you in some place, therefore you go launch a war on them. It was Dharma Yuddha. It is not like you don't find WMD, weapons of mass destruction. On the hunch of it, you go destroy the entire country. They waited patiently for 80+ years. And just before this war, they served the agreement. How many years of Vanavasa? 12 years of Vanavasa and 1 year of Ajnatavasa. They just concluded. And even then, they were not ready to be given their right. There are people that have questions. Anyway, this was supposed to be Dhrtarashtra's. He gave it to the Kauravas. What was wrong in those Kauravas, Duryodhana ityadi, having that land for themselves? According to that day Rajya Dharma, if the older son does not have the physical ability, he would not be the chosen one to be the king. And Dhrtarashtra was born blind. Therefore, he was not given that role. It came to Pandu, his brother. So therefore, even the Pandavas are technically Kauravas. Because somewhere deep in our psyche, in our understanding, we think that Kauravas are bad people and Pandavas are good people. No, the Pandavas are also belonging to the same Kuru Vamsha. They are also technically called Kaurava only. But because of this war, those who had the kingdom with them were called the Kauravas, or recognized as Kauravas. Those who were challenging had to have a name. Therefore, that entire group was called Pandavas. 80 years of oppression. And finally, the war got declared. If tomorrow morning was the war, Dhrtarashtra, with a plan, strategy, writes a message, meaning he asks his assistants to write a message, seals that message, gives it to Sanjaya with a specific directive. Make sure that you go to these Pandavas, all 5 of them. Make sure that Krishna is not there around them. Ensure that this message is delivered to Pandavas only when Krishna is not there. So the best time for you to deliver this message is after their strategic meeting is done. Krishna will go to his camp. Each one had their own little tents. So the campsite where Krishna was seated, once he leaves for it, then you enter in and deliver this message only to Pandavas. Now Bhagavan Krishna finished his job as anticipated. He came back in his Ratha to his campsite. As he was, getting ready to sleep for the next day's war, from his tent he sees a chariot going, and on that chariot there is the insignia, the flag, carrying the emblem of Dhrtarashtra. He's like, this is not right. Why is Dhritarashtra's chariot going towards Pandavas? Something is not sitting right here. So he immediately grabbed his Angavastra, called for his charioteer, Sarathi, and he said, to the Pandava camp again. So he rushed in. By the time he reached the Pandava campsite, they were all seated. Sanjaya was opening the message. Bhagavan enters. And he sees immediately, he reads immediately a sense of hesitation on Sanjaya's face. Sanjaya is also one of the greatest devotees of Bhagavan Krishna. Instead of seeing joy on the face of Sanjaya, when he sees that hesitation, this is something not right here. Before Sanjaya could speak, Bhagavan looks at Yudhishthira and he says, "Hey Yudhishthira, do you personally have a problem if I am here while Sanjaya is delivering you this message?" Yudhishthira immediately gets up from his throne, rushes to Bhagavan, calls him, invites him, gives him his throne and sits at his feet. Now when this much has happened, now Sanjaya dare not say that please ask Krishna to step out, because it will not be right on his part, it will be directly insulting Yudhishthira. Clenching his teeth, he delivers that message. The message is, in short, you are also one of us. In tomorrow's fight, you will be fighting your own grandfather, those who are your chacha, tau, bhai, bhatija, your gurus. What will you gain after killing your own? You have already proved that when Hastinapura was lost, you created Indraprastha. Go somewhere across to the Dandakaranya and create your own Samrajya. Now Bhagavan Krishna heard this, and it was wrong at several layers that this message be sent at that nick of the time. So he tapped Yudhishthira and he said, "Is it okay if on your behalf I give the response?" And Yudhishthira, in all innocence, he looks at Bhagavan and says, "Of course, Bhagavan." Now Sanjay is like, this is something that I cannot avoid. So then Bhagavan says, the response for this you will be given in the battlefield. Meaning battle is happening. Now let us look at the listeners of that message in the Pandava camp. Yudhishthira was very, very clear in his head. Yes, atrocities have been done, we have been oppressed, but I am standing up in this war not for personal gain, personal glory, but for re-establishing dharma. He was very clear. Nakula Sahadeva were ardent followers of Yudhishthira. They did not even have a logic. They said, if brother says, Yudhishthira says, stand, we will stand, fight, we will fight. That was the kind of discipline that they had. Bhima, the throne is often called Simhasana. There are two big size Simha on either side of the armrest. They are usually made of gold in those days. Bhima was so angry with this message that in his anger his clenched fist into that lion's face, that side lion was powdered. He was in that kind of a anger, rage. Because Bhima said, Yudhishthira, if you are going into this war for Dharma Yuddha, that is up to you. I am very clear why I am going into this war. It is not for Dharma, it is for clearing my vengeance. Nobody speaks about it, but of all the Kauravas, do you know how many Bhima eliminated them? What was the run rate, score? 99 of them. 99 of the 100 Kauravas were killed by one person, Bhima. That too, on the first 9 days, there was nothing happening. In the last 9 days, Bhima started eliminating them several per day. Because he knew when he had given word to Draupadi that Dushyasana's blood from the heart will be brought to drip your hair, and that is when I would have redeemed my vow, my vengeance. Bhima was clear. The other three, Yudhishthira, Nakula, Sahadeva, were also very clear. War, matlab war. Dharma Yuddha. Now the most accomplished among all of these was Arjuna. He single-handedly had won several battles. He was a self-made man. He had lot of accolades, accomplishments. He did that which he should not have done. What is it? He started thinking. Whether you do good, whether you do bad, it all starts with thinking. Now Arjuna identified with the message of Dhrtarashtra sent through Sanjaya, and doubts started arising in Arjuna's heart. As a keen observer, Bhagavan saw this transformation, the change that happened in Arjuna. He said, gadbad hai. Because if anybody from this particular army, Pandavas side, can challenge Bhishma, it is this fellow. And this fellow has started thinking in wrong directions, creating self-doubt. And he knew not to disturb Arjuna right then and there. Sometimes it is right to nip it at bud, then and there. But sometimes you have to wait for the right opportune moment. Bhagavan knew that that was not the opportune moment. If asked, probably Arjuna would have said, what are you talking, Bhagavan? I am ready for the war. And his doubts he would not have expressed ever, which would have rendered him ineffective in the war. So Dhrtarashtra, on the 10th day, when Bhishma had fallen to the arrows of Arjuna, he is thoroughly confused, devastated from inside. Why is Dhrtarashtra devastated? He said, Bhishma is done. And who did this to Bhishma? Arjuna. I had personally curated a message to impact Arjuna's psyche before even the war began. Sanjaya, did you deliver this message to Pandavas? What happened? Because if this message was delivered to the Pandavas, it would definitely have shattered Arjuna. Shattered Arjuna would not be in a position to challenge Bhishma, let alone drop him on the battlefield. If you have delivered and Arjuna got impacted, but Arjuna was also repaired to such stamina that he could challenge Bhishma and throw him down in the battlefield, something definitely has happened. On what day is he asking this? On the 10th day, after the 9 days of war is done. After Bhishma has fallen. So here, this is from Dhritarashtra's standpoint. From Sanjaya's standpoint, on that very first day, before the battle began, the confused Arjuna was taken to the middle of that battlefield and Arjuna was given a sense of clarity, which is what we call as Bhagavad Gita. Sanjaya was also the war correspondent, live war correspondent. On the news channels, when they go to the particular venue or incident, they say, "Aankho dekha hal." As we are seeing and reporting live, no other network has given this coverage. The first war correspondent was Sanjaya, because he had the ability, the vision to look through the entire war. Now, to understand the depth or enormity of this assembly of people for the war, how many Akshohinis were there in that war? 18. For most of the questions, blindly you can say 18, whether you know or not. How many chapters in Bhagavad Gita? How many days of war? Not always. There are 18 Akshohinis. Each Akshohini had Chaturangini Sena. There were those that were on horses, cavalry, those that were on elephants, those that were on the Ratha, and those who were foot soldiers. 4 kinds. Just the human being count on that war. In each Akshohini, there were about 2,50,000 armed people. कितने? 2.5 lakh. 250,000 warriors in each Akshohini. Now 250,000 into 18. कितने हुए? 250 into 18. हाँ, 45. 4.5 million or 45 lakh warriors. Can you imagine, visualize? 11 Akshohinis on one side, 7 Akshohinis on the other side, totaling of up to 45 lakh, 4.5 million. When you go to a classroom, 30 students, when they start whispering, when you go into the assembly with about 800, 900 students, they start whispering. I used to be there in that house, right, that room. It would be like a roaring sound. Nothing with clarity, but a roaring sound with about 800 people. Imagine about 45 lakh people on that battlefield. Even if they were just moving their feet around, it would create a rumbling roar. That many had assembled on that battlefield. Eleven of them, 11 Akshohinis, were being protected by Bhishma. That Bhishma was dropped by Arjuna. कुछ तो है गड़बड़. Sanjaya, what did you do? So when Sanjaya looks into it, the kind of vision that he had an aerial view of the entire 45 lakh people fighting. He could pinch and zoom in. He could get a wide shot and a specific zoomed in shot with clarity, distinction about every single happening on that battlefield. And his job was to report that to Dhrtarashtra. Just like our TV channels. Sanjaya was not just a good war correspondent, he also happened to be a very good editor-in-chief. On the first day of the battle, when Bhagavan gave the message to Arjuna, Arjuna got repaired. He did not report this particular portion to Dhrtarashtra. He edited that portion, 700 shlokas. Sanjayaya Swaha. But this shrewd Dhrtarashtra recognized something happened, Sanjaya, which you have not clearly given me information. What happened? कुछ तो हुआ, क्या हुआ, अब बताओ. So from Sanjaya's standpoint, it was like, I thought I was playing it safe. Why was Sanjaya trying to play it safe? Because he knew how Dhrtarashtra thought. If Dhrtarashtra came to know that, Arjuna was handled by Bhagavan Krishna himself, maybe he would strategize something crooked and create another barrier. Though he was working for Dhrtarashtra, his heart was with Pandavas. So he did not reveal this part of 700 shlokas to Dhrtarashtra. Now you have almost a complete backdrop as to what actually happened just before the war and why Dhrtarashtra had to ask. That is the only sentence that you see in entire Bhagavad Gita. One of our Swamijis used to say that probably because after asking the question, like many people in Vedanta class, Dhrtarashtra also slept through Vedanta. At least for those who have eyes, you can clearly say when they are sleeping, when they are not sleeping. For those who don't have, how do you recognize if you are sleeping or not? Other than that question, he doesn't say a word after that. So this becomes the backdrop history to understand as to why Dhrtarashtra had to ask that question right in the beginning. Before I proceed any further, I would like to make a very earnest request. At the end of this lecture also I'll have few requests, but right now in the flow, we happen to refer to our scriptures, our shastra, our itihasa specifically as the mythology. Mythological works, Ramayana and Mahabharata, mythological characters. So my request is, stop referring to our itihasa as mythology. Why is that request being made? The root word for mythology is myth. Myth म्हणजे काय? What does myth mean? That which is fictional, that which is made up, that which is not true. Unbelievably, for generations we have been repeating it to ourselves, trying to say that this is a mythology. So when the children from the next generation come, obviously because we have been calling it a mythology, what is their question? Their question immediately is, what is the proof that Ramayana and Mahabharata happened? Are they not good stories with some morals? See, the dignity and pride, because I have stayed in the American continent for 22 years, I have had the interaction with the Jewish or the Christian or various denominations of Christian. When they tell them that that which you are being told as our story, for them, whatever is their story, even to this day, you have those places with that very same name. And we become in this country, our Daurbhagya, that what is in name? Even when your name is being mispronounced, you stand up and try to correct them. The entire history has been wiped out clean, wherein that very place, that very name, that very place where the history has happened, the names have been changed. That fellow who has destroyed Nalanda, the station where you have to get off to reach to Nalanda is called Bhaktyarpur, because his name was Bhaktyar Khilji. Daurbhagya में गया भाग्यनगर, भाग्यनगर भाग्यंलो, भाग्यनगर and पिलिबिचकोने भाग्यन ले. See, when we refer to our historical places, historical events, to understand the Sthala, Sthala Purana, Sthala Itihasa, I don't know if you have traveled to Amarnath. Anybody? Very good. At least two of you. When you hire that pony, khachar, invariably they are of a different religion. Ask them, they will refer to all those Sheshanag, Anantanag, Amarnath, Guha and all those places. They have a completely different name. Slowly but surely, the effort is being made to alienate our own culture, our own civilization, our own identity from us. Why? Amarnath is far away. It has not become a reality yet here. Think about it. Names connect to the history, history connects to the civilization connects to my identity, and my identity, if it is weak, I become a weak personality. If it is strong, I become a dignified personality. Hastinapur, Indraprastha is today called our own history is being erased. And instead, when you go into the Delhi streets, what do you find those streets named as? All those who tried erasing, their names are displayed. So the next generation obviously will come to us and says, "वो जगह ही नहीं है. You are making up all this story." See, Balavihar, Yuva Kendra people, when we take them for Bharat Darshan and various Tirtha Yatras, the basic idea there is to reconnect them so that they can find that pride and that dignity in their own culture, history and civilization. Once that identity is established, rest of it, they can shoulder it. You don't need to prod them to shoulder it. Therefore, the first effort that I request you all, stop referring to Mahabharata and Ramayana as mythology. Immediately there should be another question that should be popping in your head right now. Then what should we call it? You call them as epic called Ramayana or Mahabharata. Replace the name mythology with epics. It is not a mythological character of Rama or Krishna or various other people. They are our history. Even today when we do the Rama Kalyana, we give the entire pravara from all the way Vivaswan to Dasharatha, Dasharathi. Today morning also I was mentioning it. When we say, पता नहीं मनु ने क्या लिखा था, the Manu Smriti, I am sure none of us have studied it. But because we have been hearing it, we also join the bandwagon and say, Manu Smriti. Do you know Manu is he is connected directly to Rama? Rama is called Ikshvaku Kula Uttama. Who was Ikshvaku? Manu's own son. So kindly reconnect to our own roots. And the first and foremost, I reiterate, I restate it, stop calling our itihasa as mythology. This should be the last day that you would be talking on that topic of it being referred to as mythology. Thank you. Now going into the Bhagavad Gita aspect. Is this much understood so far? Because if this backdrop is understood, then we will understand as to why Arjuna is reacting that way. Not knowing all of this, there are many children this generation that come and ask, Swamiji, I feel after going through the first chapter and I feel that Arjuna was right. He was being a sattvic person. He didn't want to fight the war. It was the dirty mind of Krishna that he pushed him to the war. Why? Again, a disconnect from history. While I am at it, I might as well add one more statement and then move on. मौका है इसीलिए. What is kind of disdain that we look at history? That we don't want our children to study history. Engineering, doctor, law, chartered accountant. And in that engineering also, software, if not software, hardware. Why? Otherwise you will be left nowhere. History, don't even touch it with a thorny stick. That is the kind of disdain that we have. You don't need to become a historian, but at least reinstill the pride in connecting to that right history. Identity is important. Staying here in the comfort of being in Bharat, we may not understand the greatness of its identity. Again, having stayed there for 22 years, I can say it very profoundly. Those that cause or seek destruction of this country as our neighbors, when those people open shops in America, they don't dare name their shops as a Pakistan shop or a Bangladeshi shop. Do you know what they name it as? Indian store, Indian restaurant. अपनी पहचान की गरिमा इतनी है. Those that fight with us don't have a standpoint of their identity, and how do they pass by? With that identity which we question. Now let us come to Bhagavad Gita. Having straight, that's why I said, मौका है इसीलिए let me make that statement once. So being the first day, let me start with the shloka and from tomorrow we will go in depth, though I have still 20 minutes. अथ श्रीमद् भगवद गीता ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः. अथ प्रथमोऽध्यायः अर्जुन विषाद योगः धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत संजय. This entire Bhagavad Gita, within those 700 shlokas, wherever Bhagavan Krishna has spoken, he has not been referred to as Krishna or Devaki Nandana, none of these names. He is being referred to as Swayam Sakshat, that Bhagavan only. So who is giving this message? Sakshat Bhagavan is giving this message. Therefore Bhagavad Gita gathers a very, very special status, unlike any other scripture. Within the length and breadth of our scriptures, our Shastra, they are divided into 4 parts. Shruti, all the Vedic literature, with the Vedanga, Upaveda, all of them put together is Shruti. The second is Smriti. Just now we touched upon Manu Smriti. It is not just one Smriti, we have several Smritis. There is Parashara Smriti, Manu Smriti, Garga Smriti. There are several Smritis, which gives us, the human beings, do's and don'ts at various intersections of life, age and responsibilities. Guidance. That is called Smriti. Purana. We have several different forms and formats of expression of that Paramatma as Devi Devatas. All different Devi Devatas, their different expressions, interactions with devotees, and the devotees' devotion and fine tuning themselves in devotion to that Bhagavan, that Ishta Devata, all of that has been captured. That is called the Purana. The chronicles of various Devi Devatas, chronologically captured, is called Purana. So the stories of Ganesha is called Ganesha Purana. Shiva is called Shiva Purana. Vishnu is called Vishnu Purana. Specifically focusing on Krishna, Bhagavatam, because 10th canto is filled with 100 chapters of Krishna Leela, of various expressions of Devi. It's called Devi Bhagavatam. So there are 18 Puranas, 18 Upapuranas, which talk about Devi Devatas and Bhakta. So Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Itihasa. Itihasa, we have 2 histories, epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, which is historical relevance. Now Bhagavad Gita, because Shruti is Bhagavat Proktam, that which is given by that Paramatma himself, therefore it is called Shruti. This is also Swayam Bhagavat Proktam, given by that Bhagavan alone. Shruti. Then 14th to 18th chapter, specifically we hear what are all the things that we should be doing, we should be focusing upon for our upliftment, including time to sleep, how much to eat, what not to eat has been specified. When they discuss about the guna, the three gunas and their impact in our life. Even in Dhyana Yoga, the sixth Atma Samyama Yoga, how to meditate, what are the prerequisites are also given. So do's and don'ts, the guidelines, the guidance is given. So therefore this Bhagavad Gita is also a Smriti Grantha. Shruti Grantha, Smriti Grantha. It is the interaction between Bhagavan and Bhakta Arjuna. Therefore it is Purana. And it is invariably an integral part of Mahabharata. Therefore it is Itihasa. Now Vyasaji, when he was giving these the 1 lakh shlokas, see, when you are chanting even for Arati, after 4 sentences, you have to at least pause for gulping your own saliva inside. So you need that pause. Now imagine Vyasa Bhagavan, it is in Chandobadha Kavya. It is not like today's poetry. Hilarious, you even call it a poetry. 4 times the sentence is repeated in the song. Tu ladka, main ladki. Main ladki, tu ladka. Ye poetry ho gaya. That is not poetry. That is statement of facts repeated for memorization. So many different chandas, so many different ways of expression. He had to create all of this, align the entire vocabulary, express the thought of that story without breaking the story, and delivering it with proper understanding to Bhagavan Ganesha for him to write without pausing or stopping. Not an ordinary task. So therefore, Vyasa Bhagavan, he is also an avatar. Did you know that he is also an avatar? Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya. Vyasa is verily that Vishnu's avatar. Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya. We keep chanting it in Vishnu Sahasranama. That is what it means. Therefore he is called Bhagavan Veda Vyasa. So what did he come up with? He said, if I have to give this 7-8 generations worth story to Bhagavan Ganesha to write, I need some time at least for a pause. So he sprinkled various amazing secrets, pearls of wisdom. One of the most profound pearls of wisdom is this Bhagavad Gita. If we have to go chronologically in Mahabharata, what are the other, some to mention, pearls of wisdom? The first one being the message trying to reach out to Dhrtarashtra by his own brother. What is it called? Vidura Niti. Through Vidura's mouth, that pearls of wisdom came in. It didn't penetrate into Dhrtarashtra. So to find a changing impact, he invokes Sanat Kumaras to talk to Dhrtarashtra. And that wisdom given is called Sanat Sujatiyam. While they were in the Aranyavasa, the Pandavas, Yudhishthira comes across the Yaksha. That is also very strange. His 4 brothers lying dead, wife left behind. He is thirsty, wife is thirsty, 4 brothers are dead. And what does this fellow say? You answer my questions first, then I will let you take water. In today's world, probably we would have taken that video, made it viral and say, ye anyay hai. Yudhishthira understood that this is his, and if I have to get it, I have to steady my mind, not worry about my dead brothers or my wife alone. I have to answer him. And it is not one question, 2 questions. 175 plus questions asked. And he answers through them patiently. It is called Yaksha Prashna. On the battlefield, Kurukshetra has done immense punya. On the battlefield, there are 2 Ratnas. One is Bhagavad Gita and the other is Vishnu Sahasranam. That was also given on the battlefield. Though it was given after the battle, but it was still on that very battlefield. After all of this is done, the Pattabhisheka of the Pandavas is done. One day, it seems, Arjuna comes seeking to Bhagavan Krishna. I find it hilarious. Bhagavan, I remotely remember that on battlefield you had given me an inspiring speech. कुछ तो अच्छा बोला था आपने. याद नहीं आ रहा. I am not able to remember the specifics. Can we please go through that again? So Bhagavan, if I were there as that teacher, I would have properly held his ears and given though. Bhagavan, therefore, apara karuna sindhu. He sat him down and gave the entire message again, and that is called Uttara Gita. But probably because it was already explained in the Bhagavad Gita in the most simplistic order, that is a little difficult logical sequence to go through. Therefore, most of the rishis have followed this particular one for communicating Vedantic knowledge. So the first shloka has been explained. Why Dhrtarashtra is asking this question. Kim akurvata? What happened on that battlefield? Because this is not the end that should have happened. This should not have occurred. But if this has occurred, there is something that has happened on that battlefield. Arjuna was repaired. What happened? So to that, Sanjaya, he says, I will respond tomorrow. So we will see the second shloka tomorrow. Om Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.